It still amazes me how easy it is for me to have to stop to admire how gorgeous everything is. It's not just the Utah thing, it's not just because there's snow on the ground, but it's just amazing. We're in a real fine piece of country here, and it's remarkable around every turn. But we're not here to talk about that. Today we're going to be making a stove out of something that everybody has lying around, old PBR cans. This won't work unless it's a PBR can, so make sure you have that. Oh, and LaCroix works as well. But it's going to be an ultralight option. I've seen this on the trail quite a bit. I've made a few of them, but today I'm going to try out a new design that I think will work. I've done about 3/4 of this design before, but I'm going to add a new element that I haven't done that hopefully will bring it to the next level. And the interesting thing about this is that it's actually an alcohol stove, so it's going to run off of isopropyl alcohol. It is quite cold and windy today, so if at any point I'm talking and the microphone ends up cutting out, I'll just do a voiceover and it'll look something like this. This is what it looks like when there's a voiceover. You need a few ingredients for today's project. You're going to need some soda cans, PBR cans, whatever. You're going to need some isopropyl alcohol to actually get the stove running. You're also going to need some fiberglass insulation, a little bit of sandpaper, some JB Weld or another equivalent epoxy, and some sort of fine metal mesh. I'll show you what I used for this project for those types of ingredients because they're pretty easy to find if they're just laying around. But the first thing we're going to do is get this guy chopped up. Something great about the PBR cans specifically for this project is that you have these horizontal lines here that you can use as a guide to go straight across, and they're at a few different levels, so if you want a deeper can that is a larger fuel reservoir, you can take advantage of those horizontal lines here. So that's what I'm going to get started with. I'm just going to start cutting here. Doesn't have to be razor straight, but as best as you can do. Awesome, so now we've got the base, and for one stove you're going to need 2 of these cans so that you have the 2 bottom pieces here. And this is just an alternate method. If you prefer to use tin snips, I'll show you how to do that too. This is the bottom half of another can that I've already cut to save space in the car when I'm transporting it, because you don't need the top half. So just do a vertical line going down the can. Then you're going to do kind of a sweeping line to the side, like that. Just make a hole here, and then continue with the tin snips, slowly making your way down. Okay, super. This one looks even cleaner than the other one. So now we've got these 2 pieces, and essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting some filler in here and then kind of locking them together after one point is pre-made to be the burner section of it. So we're gonna look and figure out which one we want to be our bottom. I'm gonna say this one I want to be the bottom because that means that this section will end up getting tucked into this one, and this line is not as pretty as the one that I just did with the tin snips. So before I do that, even I'm actually gonna sand off the dating on here, and then I'm also going to sand off some of the lettering on here because we're going to be putting an epoxy here, and the rougher the surface, the better the epoxy will adhere and the better it will seal. So I'm going to get started on that. I'm just going to use some regular coarse sandpaper for that. Super easy. You're not trying to get all the lettering off or anything like that. We're just trying to rough up the surface here. This will end up hidden anyway. Now I'm going to take the camera a little bit closer to the ground. So that was just pieces of a grommet kit. You'll see how to use that in just a moment here, but these are 2 halves of a grommet, and essentially that's just going to be a protected hole that isn't quite as sharp, and it's much more difficult for fluid to leak out of. Then we've got a base right here, and then this is kind of a special tool that makes this job a whole lot easier. It's just a tiny hand screwdriver. You can use a regular drill if you need to, but I found that this really spices things up quite a bit and reduces the chance that you'll actually break the soda can. You can be much more scientific about this if you want, but I'm just gonna drill a hole in the center of this. Okay. Sweet, so we've got that hole. Then I'm just gonna make a few adjacent holes so that this little thing is a bit bigger. This is why I said you can use a drill press, because this is a bit tedious, but if you're willing to put in the work, it'll be just fine. And the hole that we're going for is going to be about the same size as whatever rivet you choose to use. Put this guy on there. Just whack him. Because redneck engineering is the best type of engineering. You can see that's not exactly the center of it, but I think just a little bit wider, or perhaps we'll use the smaller rivet for this one. Yes, perfect, except that it's a little bit off center, but I don't really mind. Gonna grab both halves of that. And keep your drill out for just another moment here. Now normally when you're using a rivet kit, or a grommet kit, you'll put it in the other way. You'll use this part as the part that you're going to whack with the hammer, but we're going to do that the opposite way today because we don't have anything to support the inside of this can, so it makes more sense to do it reversed like this. And in the true spirit of this channel, we don't even have a hammer on hand. Okay, it's not pretty, but it's in there, and I'm gonna skip using the bottom half of this just to save it for a later project, because the hole was kind of perfect for this to fit in there, and we don't necessarily need this guy right now. Next up, we're gonna put some more holes in this guy. We're gonna size down on the bit here a little bit. Nothing microscopic, but maybe a little bit smaller. These are kind of like removing lug nuts, so you're going to want an equal amount of holes, and you're going to drill them on the opposite side of each other. So the first one's going to be down here, and then the next one's going to be up here, and then over here, and over here. There are fancier ways to do this, just like the whole entire project, but we're just going to go for it. Okay, and once you got that through, make sure you stick the bit in and straighten out the hole so that it's vertical instead of going in on an angle, because when you do it, you're probably going to go in on an angle. It's alright if you bend the sides a little bit, so long as you don't totally destroy the can. And if you're going ultralight, you'll probably want to saw off all these little pieces here, just to save those not even ounces, just grams that you'd be cutting off. You probably also want to get all this sand and stuff that's accumulated in there out. This is kind of just a fun little project here. I don't really plan on using this for ultralight. I'll probably spend some more time and make a really, really nice one for that. But for now, this will work. So we're just going to go right opposite that by the eye. Alrighty, well, there we have it. 4 holes. If you're going ultralight, you might want to go for a few more holes there just to remove a bit more material, and it slightly increases the efficiency, but we're just going to do 4 today because I feel like it. Next up here, what we're going to do is we're going to get this old thing, strainer, whatever, pasta device, and this is going to be our fine mesh. So we're going to get some tin snips or pliers or whatever you got. We're going to start cutting and destroying it, unfortunately. We just need a very small mesh here. Very small piece of mesh. Alrighty. Well, there we go. Now we've got our piece of mesh here. It kind of moves sideways, which is neat. I guess. And that's just gonna go over this hole here so that the insulation that we're putting inside right now does not fly out. This is just regular fiberglass insulation. This is a cool little piece of history about this project is I got all these PBR cans from my housemate by promising him one of the finished products, that is a stove, and same deal with the fiberglass insulation. Got it in quite the same manner from my friend's dad because they got too much when they filled up their attic. So we're just gonna rip some of this out. Make sure you breathe it in too. Then we're gonna get the bottom of our stove here, and we're just gonna jam pack it with this stuff. This is a little bit too much, I think. So just shove all that in there. And then we're gonna need pliers for just a second. I'm gonna use my favorite tool in the entire world, the Gerber dime. And we're gonna take the edges of this and we're gonna bend them just a little bit. Just a teeny tiny bit in, like that. Not enough to rip the aluminum. This is gonna help it fit inside. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that this guy's nice and in there, all that fiberglass. And we're gonna get that mesh, stick it right in the middle where it'll stay, and just test fit it real quick. Make sure that the mesh is gonna be right below it. Then we're gonna mix up some JB Weld here. And this is the epoxy that I mentioned earlier if you're unfamiliar with it. It's 1 part super glue, 1 part steel, so it's super duper strong. Pop off this cap here, 1 tube super glue, 1 tube is aluminum, or steel. We're just gonna spray a tiny bit on there. We really don't need much at all. And we want a 50-50 mix here, so we're gonna mix yin and yang here till we get a nice solid gray color. Okay, sweet. So now I'm gonna move this over before it blows on top of me. And then we're gonna get a little guy right here. Gonna make sure that this the grate is in the middle. Then we're just gonna insert it. Now we've got a bunch of JB Weld sticking out of the side there, so I'm just gonna go ahead and wipe that off with this piece of newspaper here. Sweet, and there we have it. We'll do some testing tomorrow, 24 hours later after it's cured, so we can actually light it. So I'll see you then.